Pastor Graham, thank you so much for inviting me here today. I too had tears in my eyes. I had makeup too, so I hope it's not all messed up. When the choir came in, it was quite emotional. My wife and I have been streaming services most days from our home church back in Wichita, Kansas, Eastminster Presbyterian, just a couple hours up I-35 from where we are. It's a very special place. Those believers are very special friends of ours. We miss them an awful lot. Susan and I taught fifth grade Sunday school there for years. Perfect predicate for becoming the Secretary of State. Teaching fifth grade boys scripture and getting them in their seats. The world poses no problems. It put a real smile on my face this morning to come in and see big trucks and believers in the Lord sitting in pews. This is the America that I know. It's the America we all love. And the hymn this morning that He is worthy is what I want to talk about. He's worthy, and He is worthy of our efforts, each of us. I want to take you back just about 3 years. I was the director of the Central Intelligence Agency. I'd flown all night. I was America's most senior spy. I climbed off the airplane. I was greeted by a member of the team on the ground, and this gentleman shook my hand, and in my hand, he inserted a Bible, a palm-sized Bible. I didn't know who he was. I, to this day, don't know who this gentleman was. I got in my vehicle. This was a difficult place in the world. The Bible was dirty and sandy and gritty. And I got in the vehicle. We were headed off to the destination, and it wrote, and I want to read this. It said, "Mr. Director, you have been a light to me and to the world. Bless you." I later learned he works for the State Department. I still don't know exactly who thought I'd be here today leading his organization. But I did know that night that for at least one person at one moment that I had made his life closer to what it is we all came here this morning to pray about and to believe. I say this story not to brag about anything I've done, but to remind us all of our responsibility, our duty to shine the light wherever we go and to keep our faith in the public square. This is necessary. I believe it. I believe with all my heart that faith in the public square is not only lawful but righteous. It is not only powerful but required of each of us. And especially in these challenging times, keeping faith in the public square is not simply acceptable, but it's an imperative. It's an imperative for each of us. We must all, everyone here today, everyone watching online, must all keep faith in our lives in the public square as best we can, at home, abroad, in our workplaces, in every interaction that we have. It's great that you welcomed 3 new believers today. They now have that same calling, that same duty to shine the light wherever it is that they go. I'm here, I'm in Plano, Texas. I recognize Texas thinks it's a country, but it's really not. My team reminded me this doesn't count as some new country I visited. But I actually believe that the American people need to understand what I do as America's most senior diplomat and what my State Department team tries to do around the world each and every day. I want to start by just thinking about the fact that we're here and what a blessing it is that we can come worship freely. We can love our Lord, and we can be with our friends and brothers who do so themselves. We need to thank our founders for that. They created this unique place. As I travel the world, I am reminded how unique it is each and every day. These men knew that America was founded on a set of Judeo-Christian principles and that putting faith in the public square was necessary for a successful nation. They knew in their hearts, they knew that all human beings are created in the image of God and deserved dignity, and that our rights flow not from any government, but indeed from the Almighty. They knew that God informed moral standards. The way that we live will bring order and flourishing to all the world. It was George Washington who said it best, perhaps. He said, of all the dispositions and habits which lead to the political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. They put the protection of human dignity in our founding documents. We can never walk away from that. We reflect that. My team, as I travel the world, we do our best to reflect that. We've led the world in the response to this virus that came from China. We've provided humanitarian assistance, technical assistance. We'll keep doing that. I just traveled in. I was in Suriname, I was in Guyana. I flew to the border region between Venezuela and Brazil and watched Americans helping these refugees fleeing the brutal Maduro regime, coming just for some water, some bread to take care of their kids so that they could feed them. Had a chance to pray with a couple of them. And I watched Americans use their power, putting their faith in the public square, benefiting these people who are in such a troubled place. We know this greatness from America. Now, in our country, it's true, you're free to have no faith at all, and our nation doesn't establish a state religion. That seems right. That's what our founders contemplated. But we all, as we think about faith in the public square, need to be mindful of what countries look like when faith is banished. We know the answer. Pastor mentioned I spent my first years as a young lieutenant on the East-West German border in a tank staring across into communist East Germany. I saw the fearful and sullen faces of the East Germans, a communist police state. We can't forget world history. A godless Adolf Hitler destroyed millions and millions of lives. Chairman Mao in China, and even now today, the Chinese Communist Party. Frankly, there's no regime that rivals the horrors that are taking place in the world, the destruction of the central idea of human dignity, than what the Chinese Communist Party is undertaking today in a place that many of us wouldn't know. It's in Western China. It's called Xinjiang. There are 1 million people being held in conditions that violate the most fundamental rights, the most basic dignities of those people. These people are held in internment camps. There are forced sterilizations, forced abortions. These are the kinds of horrors that haven't befallen civilization in decades and decades. I consider it to be truly the stain of this century, and it's part of the Chinese Communist Party war on faith. They want to drive faith out of their public square. I had a chance to travel to the Chinese border region and met with a family who had one of their family members held in one of these detention camps. She wrote me a note. The note said, please pass this to the world. I'll read just a part of it. She wrote, "Beloved brothers and sisters, I earnestly ask for your prayers, for me and for my family. It's been 6 months since my husband was incarcerated in Xinjiang. At first he would make phone calls from prison to let me know that he's okay. Now the only hope I have remains in the Lord. I pray every day that he will be returned." These are the challenges that require us to keep faith in our public square here in America and every place we interact. It's what we're called to do as Christians, and I believe it is fundamentally what we are meant to be as Americans as well. First thing is what this woman asked, and you all do it here and do it every week and every day. You pray for our oppressed brothers and sisters around the world that they might one day know the freedoms that we do and they would hold to their faith under difficult trials. And of course, keep supporting your missionaries around the world. I see with them, I meet with them when I travel. They're doing great work, bringing salt and light to dark places around the globe. But you can also do it in ways that are even simpler. Every place you go, every interaction you have, bring the Lord with you. Every time you come to church, every time you go to work, at a PTA meeting, a school board meeting, soccer field, wherever it is you find yourself, exercise your right to religious freedom. Shine your light. Imagine if millions and millions and millions of Americans did this every day. It would put wind in the sails of my team at the Department of State. Evangelicals, we like to champion religious freedom. I have worked on this diligently. President Trump has been glorious in supporting those efforts. And that is fantastic. Because in fact, to whom much is given, much is expected. So we work on this with great diligence. Just urge you to use your protections, the glory that we have in America, to do big things for our country and for the kingdom. We can do them both. Keep your faith in the public square. Thank you. Look, I'm not naive. Well, maybe in some ways. But in the most important way, I know it's inevitable that when you do that, there will be those who will oppose you. There'll be those who critique you, those who will say things that may not be very Christian or particularly kind. If you do it right, that means you've got conviction. I know this firsthand. Google the headlines. There was, a former national security advisor said about me, she said, it's problematic that Mike Pompeo is overtly religious. The New York Times wrote, this is one of my favorites, it's not my wife's favorite. The New York Times wrote that no Secretary of State in recent decades has been as open and fervent as Mr. Pompeo about discussing Christianity and foreign policy in the same breath. My son, who's 30, who keeps me humble, said, well, how many breaths are you supposed to take? A fair question, coming from a young Christian believer. Look, I fundamentally believe that connecting one's faith with America's foreign policy is essential. We have to be grounded. We have to have the central understanding that our founders brought to our foreign policy, how we think about the world. Just this week, on Tuesday, 2 leaders from Muslim nations made peace with the Bible state. With the Jew, they made peace. These Jewish leaders, these Muslim leaders, both in private and in public, these leaders were adamant that their faith was at the center of the accomplishment. Think about that. You're not likely to read it in your newspaper. I was there. It mattered to them. Even though these nations had disagreements, and they will continue to have disagreements, I am confident, their faith, their commitment, their belief provided the indispensable element to permit them to recognize each other as brothers and sisters. It is no coincidence that the agreement between Israel and the United Arab Emirates and between Israel and Bahrain is called a set of agreements known as the Abraham Accords. Look, I know God's name too can be invoked for evil, but we should welcome it when leaders feel bound by a higher power to pursue harmony with their brother nations. Faith strengthens diplomacy. It does not undermine it. Now, good news. I'm not the only one at the State Department who believes this. Recently, a group of light shiners started the first ever faith-based employee affinity group at the State Department. One of the Christian faith group's leaders came to me and said, Mike, before you arrived, we did not think it wise to gather around our belief in Jesus. Now we know. We must show the value added by people of all faiths to the State Department. And I see the benefits of this every day on my own team as we travel the world, from Israel to India, to South Korea, to Senegal. World leaders and their people tell me that faith is at the center of their lives and of their nation, and they appreciate the fact that it is the center of our nation as well. So as I close, I'm going to get a chance to have a short conversation with Pastor Graham. I'm looking forward to that. No questions barred. So pray for me. The truth is, if you keep faith in the public square, then America will be a better nation. The world will be a better place. We can all do this together. Forget the critics. Keep at it. Know your Lord. I keep a Bible on a table in my office. It's over on a small table at the side of my desk. I dig into the Word as often as I can. Galatians chapter 6, verse 9 tells us, let us not become weary in doing good. For at the proper time, we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. I know no one here at Prestonwood will do that. I know those of you watching today won't either. We have a great help in the Lord, whose power is made perfect in weakness. So don't give up. Stay at it. Keep your faith. Shine your light. Walk with the Lord. Keep faith in the public square, and God will bless us, the United States of America, and the world. Thank you for having me here this morning.